Mubama's situation at West Ham has just gotten even more interesting. As we know, David Mubama has been, let's say in talks. I don't want to say he's been arguing, or he's been upset at how his career's developed so far at West Ham. But it's fair to say that he's probably not very happy. I think he has had a case for some false promises being promised to him by David Moyes, as we know, and as I've spoken about loads of times. When it came to the summer, David Moyes says, I don't want to sell him. I don't want him to get on a loan. I don't want to sell him. I think he should be a part of my plans for this season, essentially. Jared Bowen got injured. Antonio got injured. And even when we've decided to go for a second string team, we decided to go with Danny Ings. Listen, you know my thoughts on Danny Ings. I think everybody knows their thoughts on Danny Ings. He's not a player that excites me. He's not a player that I think is even effective, really. A lot of the time when you get these older players, you say, do you know what? Fair enough. You'd rather play a young, 19, exciting player that you never know what he's going to do. You never know what's in the script for him, rather than play Danny Ings, who's, experienced and has that level. But you know what you're going to get with him. However, it's not like Danny Ings is coming in the side and you're saying, fair enough, he's a conservative choice. At least he's playing the way he needs to play. At least he's getting the results. He's not. He's coming on in and he's doing nothing. I mean, Mubama was a catalyst in that game against Burnley. Don't get me wrong, the Burnley performance was not great. And, to be fair, he didn't even really get credited with the goal, but he makes that run at the near post. Even if it is an own goal, which of course that is what is officially recorded as, but I'm sure us West Ham fans and Mubama himself will disagree. If he doesn't make that run at the near post, we don't score. Simple as, if he doesn't put that pressure on the defender, if he's not in that position, we don't score. So that to me is as good as scoring. Whatever the Premier League says, whatever the stats will say, for me, that is as good as scoring. He scored that goal. He's made that goal happen. Obviously, a bit of brilliance from Kudus as well, which we have to talk about. But today we're focusing on another star boy, David Mubama. And I think a lot of people were, everybody has been on Moyes' back about starting him, about playing him in games. And, I think it was really crucial that Moyes did talk about Mubama in his post-match. Again, as well, the delicate situation of Mubama's contract. Will he sign it? He's not really happy with the game time. A lot of media outlets have reported that it's a money-based issue. We don't believe that to be true. We believe it more to be about the fact that he wants promises that are going to be kept. He wants to know that, Antonio's on his way out at the moment and Bowen's going to striker, and we're also looking for a striker. So it's very seesaw whether actually Mubama would get a proper go at the West Ham team. I think even now, to be fair, Mubama would settle for, you're going to be a bench player. I'm going to play you when the opportunity arises and you're going to play cup games. I think he'd 100% take that. I think that's what he wants. He doesn't want to be left out of the squad entirely. He's past that point. And I just want to go into what David Moyes said, having post the game, getting the Burnley result. David Moyes said, we want to play him, i.e. Mubama, but I would say how many 19-year-old centre-forwards are there in the Premier League? It's getting harder because it is such a difficult role, and at the level of the competition is really high at the club. Nearly every club is really high. His mentality and attitude are as good as any top player. He is so determined and works incredibly hard for the team. We need to develop his actions and technical ability, but he is only 19. And I have to say that's quite naive, to be honest. I mean, Jude Bellingham is 2 years older than... Is he 21, Jude Bellingham? I'm pretty sure he is. He's in and around that age bracket. But at 19, he was absolutely ripping it up for Dortmund. Sancho, when he was a young player, ripping it up. Phil Foden was brilliant. Rashford, when he came in, was brilliant. So I think it's quite naive to just look at his age and say, how many... It doesn't matter. Age does not matter, Craig Dawson, for Christ's sake, when he came to the club, was in his retirement years, 31, 32 years of age, I'm pretty sure. And he was absolutely brilliant. He came in and he was brilliant. He transformed that defence. He's probably credited with a lot of our success during his time at the club. And obviously became a cult hero and a fan favourite. And, he was an older player. We can't always just say to ourselves, well, they've got to be between 23 and 30. Otherwise, I feel like one thing every football fan does is we instantly think that young players are brilliant because they're young players. We haven't seen much of them. And, they've got a lot of potential. And when we see older players, we instantly think, where they're past it, like even if you get offered to sign someone, Harry Kane's like 30 years of age, but I don't think any club in the Premier League would ever turn down a chance to sign him. And I know obviously money comes into it, but we're just talking about the quality of a player. Age for me is more a monetary issue. When you look at a player and their age, you think to yourself, right, let's say we wanted to sign someone like Broja. Yeah, he's 23 years of age. So you say, okay, well, he's a young player. He's got X amount of potential. He's played at this level for a number of years. He's done this for a number of years. Okay, if I buy him, then obviously the price is going to be inflated because he's younger. And if that's their asking price, how much have they inflated that to his actual value? Then you look at an older player and you think, well, I know this player's quality. I know what he presents on the table. Like Maguire. I mean, say what you want about Maguire, but like Maguire, I know what he can do. I've seen what he can do. But is he going to be still playing at this level 1 or 2 years later when he starts to, get out of his prime, when he starts to, go backwards? And also, what age is he going to retire? If I sign a 32-year-old for £30 million and I get him for 2 years, am I happy with paying that amount of money for that amount? For me, age is a monetary issue. It's a transfer issue. Age for me is not an issue on the football pitch, right? You look at Declan Rice at the moment, 23, 24 years of age, playing the football he's playing at Arsenal. And would anyone sit there and say, well, how many people at his age are tearing up the world in the Premier League like him? How many people are doing what he's doing at the moment? It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters, and again, you can look at it and say, oh, 19-year-olds, they're naive, they've still got a lot to learn at the game, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. They've got a lot to learn at the game and, maybe they'll make mistakes and all this other stuff. But on the other hand, the only thing that matters is their output on the pitch, right? Age is a monetary issue and it's an issue about inflation. It's a bit like a car, right? Car's a good example. You buy a brand new car, it's going to run well, you know what it's going to do, but it's going to be more expensive than a car that's used that maybe has only a couple of years left on it. That's a good example of how you should look at age when you get to a player. When you get to a player who's playing really well, who's doing brilliant things, you can't say, well, he's playing really well, but he's also 19. That shouldn't come into it. That shouldn't be a thought process. The thought process should be, who's the best player to play in his given position? Who's the best player to play for the team? Who scores the most goals? Who's going to suit our style the most? Whether they're 19, 45 or 30, it shouldn't matter. The only thing that matters is how do they play on that football pitch? And David Mubama came on in that game and he forced that goal. He forced that goal in the net. Yes, he didn't get accredited with it, but he forced that goal in the net. And he simply has to start. Whether Bowen is free of injury on Thursday is irrelevant. I think this is the absolute time where momentum has to take place. Mubama is probably in a pretty good mood considering what's just happened. He gets that chance against Freiburg. We're doing quite well in the group. Obviously, Freiburg is a fairly winnable game. But what does that show to David Mubama? You forced that goal. You made that goal happen, on Sunday. Do you know what? You get the start. It's all well and good starting Ings, and if he plays crap, then playing Mubama and taking him off the bench. But it's so different when you put a player on and start them. Starting the first 45 and getting subbed off for the last 45 is very different to getting subbed on for the last 45, having been dropped for the first 45. The psychosis, the level of trust that goes in to allowing a player to start a game is so different. Even though you're playing the same amount of minutes, it's still very different to a player to be given that nod and have that name on the team sheet and be said, you're starting today. It's very, very different. The two, you can't compare them. Yeah, we could trust Danny Ings, but surely after the performance, you should say, do you know what? Why not? What have I got to lose? If I start Mubama for the first 45 and he's absolutely awful, I know I've got Danny Ings who I can rely on, so I'll play him if things go wrong. Otherwise, you're saying, well, Danny Ings, I know what I get from him, and if he plays crap, then I can put Mubama on who'd be a bit more exciting. Surely, if we look at the potential here, Danny Ings is going to be on a slow stream like this. Slow stream. You know what you're going to get from him week in, week out. Mubama has this trajectory. He could be up, he could be down. You never know what you're going to get from him. But surely the risk of the fact he could be playing up here is worth the risk that he could be playing down here, and then you'd have to sub Danny Ings on. So look, I've made my thoughts very clear on Mubama throughout this whole situation. I think he's a really great player. Ian Wright as well is someone who, has commented on him and said that he has to start at the moment. He suits the team better. He's a better player than Danny Ings. He's a young player. And I just think with these contract negotiations going on, having come off the bench, which to be fair is a good start, how much of an impact would it be if he then started on Thursday against Freiburg? And God, he gets a goal or gets a good involvement, boom, he starts the next game and the next game and the next game. And then all of a sudden, you've got a striker in your hands. You don't have to buy one in January who you think could actually genuinely do good things for West Ham. So I do think that Moyes' comments about Mubama are a little bit old school. It's a different game nowadays, and not a lot of players back then, a lot of them had to bide their time and earn their chances. Players these days, they can literally hit the ground running, come in at 18, 19, 20 and be a Premier League starter. Like, it can happen. It does happen. Jude Bellingham, incredibly young player. Phil Foden at one point, incredibly young player. Rashford, I'm pretty sure he was a teenager. I think he was doing his GCSEs when he started for Manchester United in a Europe game for the first time. Kobe Mainu, did you see the Everton game? Kobe Mainu, he was brilliant. Garnacho as well. The goal he just scored, I'm pretty sure he's around 21, 20 years of age. So, listen, I think that David Moyes' comments are a little bit naive about his age. And I think you've got to look at what he presents to you on a football pitch. You've got to consider the contract situation. And Mubama simply has to start. And he's proven his point. I think he's proven his point as a striker. And Moyes simply has to start him, not just on Thursday, but in our next match too, on Sunday against Palace.